This is TWiT.
So Gigi Sohn was nominated ages ago to fill an empty.
Some said not soon enough, which is another story. But yes,
to fill an empty seat in the Federal Communications Commission. She's a former Democratic FCC official. She was nominated by the White House October 2021. Okay, a year and a half ago. But the problem is the telecommunications people hate her, which in my opinion makes her the perfect person for an FCC commissioner.
Yeah.
She has been consistently attacked, and the Republican Congress has blocked her.
Well, a couple Democrats also.
Yeah, Manchin and Mark Kelly. I thought more of him.
Yeah.
And yeah, here's what makes me angry. Okay, I get that politics is politics, but there was a lot talking about her personal life. She is a reformer. I would say that she's a reformer who is understanding and understands the technical aspects of telecommunications at a very deep level. Like I've had discussions with her about carrier aggregation.
You know her.
I know her. She's great. She is smart and sharp. She is also gay. And that has come up several times, both officially and in this slimy, underhanded, like astroturfy lobbying way. And the Republicans and I am outraged that Gigi's personal life is part of this at all. And I just, like, it's one thing. Yes, I knew that Gigi might be a hard sell because she is a reformer and she's very much, you don't get to be in charge of anything in Washington having openly stated your opinion, right? And advocated for anything. You have to be as neutral as, like, I don't know, what's something neutral?
Water.
Bread.
I was like,
Stacey's mom.
Neutral is white bread. No, my mom is the opposite of neutral, but yes, maybe the song. You just have to be incredibly inoffensive. And yeah, I'm just so mad. We lost such an opportunity, and we haven't been able to regulate anything at the FCC for the last 2.5 years.
Which may be secondarily part of this, right? Is not just Gigi Sohn, but let's not fill this seat so that we can't get anything done.
Yeah.
She is absolutely an advocate for net neutrality. And this is something telecommunications hates. But it's something that you and I and everybody who's listening to the show should support.
Yeah, she's very pro-consumer in all of her things. And she's not afraid to call out the fact that we have basically a monopoly in our telecoms. Not a monopoly. We have a very anti-competitive telecommunications regime in the U.S.
A duopoly, in effect, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, please, like anyone's getting DSL nowadays. You're either, I mean, if you're in one of the few areas where they offer fiber.
That's a good point.
Sure.
That's actually a really good point. It used to be a duopoly. Now it's the incumbent cable carrier.
And Gigi was arguing that.
That's it. Yeah.
Way before, because she technically understood what was happening in broadband. Oh.
It's an acknowledgement. Unfortunately, it's an acknowledgement of the importance the FCC has to these companies, the power the commission would have if they were fully staffed and they weren't being so viciously and frankly underhandedly opposed. This isn't really about policy. This is about how we can undermine this. So it's a 2-2 split right now. Normally, the FCC has 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and then a chairman nominated by the incumbent party, the president, which would give it a 3-2 Democratic majority. That's exactly what Ted Cruz and Manchin don't want, right? So that's what
and I will point this out. The telecoms in the EU have managed to convince Margaret. How do we say that?
Margarethe Vestager.
Yes, they've managed to convince her to listen to their arguments that Netflix should be paying them for clogging up their pipes, basically. So this is an argument that we've had for decades now in the U.S. where
it's utter BS.
Double bill.
It's double billing.
It's complete BS.
Yeah, it's utter BS.
Exactly. Yep.
But now the EU is like, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay, so keep an eye on that, because if they succeed in the EU, they're going to come right back here and be like, well, maybe now is the time. And they did it during the pandemic because people were streaming so much Netflix while businesses were trying to also do work and the broadband pipes couldn't handle it.
I guess, look, it's appalling to attack her because of her sexuality. That's ridiculous. But I guess you could make the case that this is what makes America so great, is that, you can fight something like this by spending money on billboards in Las Vegas and advertisements in West Virginia and so forth. The Center
but it's
for
not
a Free...
us making that money.
No, I understand.
Or spending that money. It's corporations.
Well, okay, but
Let's talk about Citizens
United.
United
They have a dog in the
and
hunt.
what that did.
This actually, but this isn't campaign contributions. This is literally just buying ads, which there is, even without Citizens United, has always been legal. Conservative groups, this is from the Washington Post, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars attacking Sohn as partisan and extreme, leading a campaign focused in the states of several moderate Democrats who are already on the fence about Sohn. One billboard in Las Vegas, hence Mark Kelly, Gigi Sohn is too extreme for the FCC. This was paid for by the American Accountability Foundation. The foundation and another conservative nonprofit organization, the Center for a Free Economy, placed more than $200,000 in Facebook ads opposing Sohn. The foundation ran ads last month saying she was dangerous because she served on a board that opposes anti-sex trafficking efforts. And guess what that board was? So first of all, that's not what the board was doing, but guess what the board was? The EFF. She serves on the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Right. She's an advisor. So they said, the EFF is in favor of sex trafficking, and so Gigi Sohn is in favor of sex trafficking. None of that is true.
And I would argue that, I don't know if y'all remember Copps as a commissioner, but Gigi is no more liberal than Copps, I would say. Michael Copps.
And Copps released a statement saying how appalled he was at this.
Yeah, and he should be. I mean,
we should point out that Sohn became an advisor of the EFF after the bill was signed into law by President Trump in 20 years after Trump made it a law. She also saw fierce opposition, according to the Post, from the Fraternal Order of Police, which criticized her ties to the EFF because it's opposed to breaking encryption.
Yeah, well, so are we. That means we can't be on a governmental body?
Ernesto Falcon, a senior legislative counsel at the rights group, called the Fraternal Order of Police's opposition to Sohn's nomination purely political muscle and said it wasn't based on reality or facts. This is Falcon's from the EFF.
Gigi, she founded, I was just checking to make sure because I knew she was involved with it. She was one of the co-founders of Public Knowledge, which was a group that was all about net neutrality. It was a big advocate against SOPA PIPA. SIPA POPA.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Can't do it.
As we were.
I mean, yeah, that's when
not
I met
being
her.
in favor of sex trafficking.
Good
I mean, that's not even close. So really, this was a smear campaign. The problem is that the moderate Democrats are swayed by it. They're wimps, as are all politicians these days are utter wimps.
You know what, Joe Manchin, I don't know how to say his name. He is not a moderate. I don't know what he is.
No, but Mark Kelly is.
I know.
Jacqueline Rosen from Nevada is, and maybe there's, if you're in Nevada, I guess you might say, well, my seat is, it's a purple state. My seat is at risk. So I got to give in on some of these things. But these are bogus. These are totally bogus allegations. Anyway, and who loses out? We lose out because, and this is why it should be important to everybody listening, Gigi Sohn was an advocate for consumer rights, for net neutrality, for the kinds of things we want as opposed to big telecom. Make no mistake about this, big telecom won a massive victory here.
Okay, so with all of this said, because I hate politics and try not to pay any attention to it, and I know that makes me a bit of an idiot or whatever, but all you just said was people were slinging mud about this person.
Yes.
And why can't she just essentially just do the same thing? Because that's all it seems politics does nowadays, is somebody just throws out a bunch of
I'll tell you
outlandish, slanderish stuff. And even though it's slander, nothing ever really
I'll tell you exactly why.
done about it.
She doesn't have the 200,000
fall for it.
You know, it's all about money. She doesn't have the $200,000 to buy the billboard across the street that says that's BS. The telecom industry spends a lot of money to make sure that Congress and the FCC does its bidding. We as users don't carry that much weight. Now, you have an important point, though. The weight we have is our vote.
Yeah.
And so that money would be meaningless.
Unless it's affected by the
right, but we're affected by money
and the Electoral College. But yes,
well, okay, but honestly, if we voted in great numbers in favor of net neutrality, in favor of free and fair competition among telecom companies, we would win that battle.
We win, but it keeps on being challenged again and again and again.
Yeah. And this is the role of money in politics. That's the problem, man. It's the role of money in politics, ultimately.
I'm going to sound insensitive, and I'm not trying to be, but I don't like the fact that she bowed out of this because of all of this ridiculous pressure.
Well, she didn't want to.
And it's not.
Went on for 18 months.
Nothing is facts.
She wasn't going to win.
It's the whole line of, what do you believe in and what are you going to fight for? And she sounds like she's the perfect person to fight for all of these issues.
You're told to back out.
You're told to back out.
You're holding up the chance to put somebody in. So you get the chance
even
to
more of a
graciously back out. She fought for a long time.
No nominee will survive 18 months of this kind of stuff. No. You just can't. In fact, I was surprised they lasted this long. It's because Biden really wanted her in that she was able
Biden's under criticism, too, for not having supported enough and not having gone to the mat enough.
Yeah, he could have gone to the mattresses. Is that a phrase? Gone to the
mat. Top dog. So going to the mattresses is when you're getting ready for a gang war. So when the Sopranos go to the mattresses, or in The Godfather when they go to the mattresses, the Corleones go to the mattresses, that's because we're having a gang war. When you go to the mat, it's a wrestling metaphor, isn't it, Jeff?
I feel like they should have gone to the mattresses. I would have gone to the mattresses for Gigi. She's totally worth it. I would have gone straight out.
But that's all I'm saying.
All of my hardware and gone.
I know there's a lot of money involved, but man, we the people get outraged over so much stuff that is way smaller in value. Where's the outrage from we the people on this? Where's the outrage where we can actually get in and raise these $200,000, $500,000?
Well, you're right.
Mr. Ant, there's a lot of outrage about Google, Twitter, and so on and so forth. But the company we all universally hate is our phone company. The companies that try to ruin the internet is the phone company.
Yeah.
The companies that spend this fortune on lobbying to kill things like net neutrality is the phone company. We hate Ma Bell's children, but they cleverly managed to get away with it a lot more than the tech companies these days.
Yeah.
Really. You're actually raising the most important point, and it speaks directly to what you said about I don't like this stuff. I hate this stuff, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And that's exactly what these companies want. They want you to say it's too complicated, it's too contentious. It doesn't affect me. Screw it. And so there's really only one way they can win. If you and others like you don't get educated and don't vote, if you don't participate. So because they've got all the money, they've got the war chest, they buy these ads, but it's also in their interest, I think, to keep people unhappy, to keep people dismissive of politics. You can't win. You can't make a difference. I'm not going to vote. And that's really the ultimate way to win, because the truth is,
I'm going to tell you, that's a lot of my thinking, sir. A lot of my thinking is, man, my vote, I know it counts, but I hardly ever go into any voting scenario with faith.
Yeah, and that's why it's really our job, I believe, in the media, to convince people like you. You're the target. We said you're the most normal person on the show. You're the target to convince people like you that not only does your vote count, it's the only way to win against deep pockets. And so but it's hard, explaining net neutrality. I do this I've been doing this for 10 years trying to explain net neutrality. It's very, very difficult. And companies make it even more difficult with giveaways, explaining zero rating.
Zero rating.
Yeah, explaining zero rating to people is very hard. This is where T-Mobile says, hey, by the way, you're going to get a year free at Disney Plus, and it's not going to count against your data cap. And so that's all called zero rating. It's a way that T-Mobile can put their thumb on the scale and make consumers go, well, there's nothing wrong with that. I like that. And so it's a very difficult thing, but we have to do better. I think media has to do better educating people about what net neutrality means, why this is so important, especially we on the internet, we who use the internet to broadcast, to write, to communicate, because it really is one of the most important issues that the FCC has to deal with right now. And ultimately, and this is what the EFF said, by the way, in response to Sohn's withdrawal. This is the guy I just quoted from the EFF Falcon. He said, it's never been about Gigi Sohn. It's always been about preventing the FCC from doing its job. These companies,
that's what it sounds like.
Yes,
right?
Yep.
They don't want regulation. They've got the money to buy the billboards, to convince
and by the politicians.
But you also,
they bought Ajit Pai. Good Lord.
But
that man.
honestly, if people voted, money's only good to the extent that it sways people's votes. If people voted, ultimately, that's the only real currency in any of this, is your vote.
Well, as people vote and become more successful, what we're seeing is then an attack on voting rights. We cannot solve this here. But
yeah, that was the other part. Is some people it's apparently is a struggle just to be able to go and vote.
Well, that should tell you something. That means your vote is valuable, because they're putting a lot of effort into keeping you from voting, especially as a black person.
Yeah,
they do not want black people voting in this country. So that should tell you your vote is valuable. Everybody's vote is valuable. And I would have no fear for this country at all if everybody voted and everybody got educated before they voted. That would be the best thing possible.
Well, that's the other piece, is education.
Yeah, the education.
They're attacking education.
I absolutely hated reading all of those daggum pamphlets and arguments, prior to voting, because everybody's going to, again, throw mud first and foremost before presenting any type of facts. And then you finally get to the facts to figure out, okay, why am I voting on this? Why does this matter to me? Why does this matter to my family? So on and so forth. I hated reading those things, but you have pamphlets? To, though. What's that?
The League of Women Voters pamphlets. Those are relatively neutral, I would say. And then if you have
hadn't seen that. I just get whatever comes in the mail, and then I go online and try to look at multiple different sources, because, I don't want to just
look at the League of Women Voters. I don't know if did they start because they were trying to educate women?
Yes.
When we finally got the vote, oh my God, was it only a century ago?
Yeah, that's a very trustworthy and I would say nonpartisan source.
Yeah.
I also go to a place called Ballotpedia, which I recommend to everybody.
I've seen Ballotpedia.
Yeah, also really all about not partisan, not arguing one way or the other, but just about giving you the information, because it's hard to get that information. We're dealing with this right now with Michael, who just got the right to vote, last year.
Dude, 20. Yeah, talk about vulnerable.
Yeah. And so, and Lisa's great Lisa's so good with this, because she sat down with his ballot. She said, let's go over each of these issues. Let me show you how to research it. Let me show you. And then she said, so now that you know this, what do you think? And he'd say, well, here's what I think. And we say, good, check that box then. And I think every parent needs to do this with their kids when they turn 18.
We do it before. I do it when I'm voting.
When I was a kid, when our kids were little, I would take them to the voting booth with me. Absolutely. I wanted them to understand this is the single most important thing you do in a democracy. This is the
this is your job.
This is your job. It's your job. Paying taxes and voting, and it's the lifeblood. And if you don't like the taxes, then vote.
Right.
All of it. The problem is it's really easy to think, well, it doesn't matter. I don't see the impact. And honestly, and I think this is the intent, when you flood the zone with BS, people throw up their hands. They say, screw it. So this is the Vladimir Putin's strategy. This is the trolls' strategy. This is, to some degree, the political party's strategy these days. And this is where I think Twitter went wrong. You flood the zone with so much conflict and BS that, you go, screw that. I'm done. Yeah. And you know what?
Yep.
I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to feed my family. I'm going to, watch a movie on Saturday night.
Yep. Have a whiskey, have a cigar.
Yep. And I completely understand that.
Life.
I often wonder how people who live in places like Putin's Russia survive. And that's how you survive. You say,
you trust nothing. It's not.
Well, not even that. It doesn't affect me. I got the potatoes to harvest. I'm going to make my vodka. We'll see you later. And unfortunately, I see especially smart geeks. This is very common among people who love technology in our audience. They go, it's just a cesspool. Screw it.
Yeah.
But that's how people like Donald Trump get elected. Is the lack of involvement among people who know.
It's not so much who votes, but who chooses not to vote.
Right.
Makes that happen.
Well said, Mr. Jarvis.
And by the way, the political parties know this, and so they carefully tailor their message to get the voters they want to the polls, which is why all these social issues are taking the fore, because that's a hot button issue that can get you out to the polls.
It galvanizes people.
Galvanizes people.
Yeah.
Right? This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. While organizations continue to seek out cybersecurity talent, the cyber skills gap grows bigger every day. The average salary for cybersecurity specialists in the United States is $116,000. Through IT Pro's binge-worthy programs, ACI Learning can help elevate anyone choosing to start their IT career. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit to get started today.